Hey folks, welcome back to the farm. It's time to get these olives done. We've been working on them for a week now, so we're ready to go. Stick around, we'll show you how to finish these things up. All right, folks, we're back. It's day 9, I believe. We started checking at about day 5 or so, checking our olives. Checked at day 7. Still wasn't quite ready, but I think this morning we're going to be able to get moving. Here's our olives. We've been rinsing them 4 times a day, sometimes 3, depending on how busy we are. So we're going to get in here and get one of our bigger specimens here. So all we do is take a little bite of it. You can see the inside of our olive. You want to make sure there's no bitterness. You're not going to have the salt, of course, so it's not going to taste like the finished product. But you're tasting to see if there's any soapy or bitter flavor. And there is not in this olive. So we are ready to go. So we got both of our digital canners out, and we're going to do 10 jars at a time because the canners will do 5 quarts pressure canning. So I've got some jars up from the root cellar. We're going to get our jars cleaned up. Because we're pressure canning, we don't have to get too crazy on the sanitation of the jars. These come with the lids and everything as a package deal. So we'll just kind of rinse them up a little bit, start putting olives in the jar. And then we got to add some salt to the jar, and then we're cold packing. So again, we can just fill these canners up. We don't have to do a lot of the steps that, the pre-steps that you have to do. We can skip some of those. Now you might be asking yourself about, now what about the pits? What happened to the pits in the olives? They're still in there. We like to call these spit pits. So when you eat these olives, you pop them in your mouth, you chew them up. And when you're all done, you'll have the pit left, and you spit the pit out or whatever you do, put it in your plate or whatever. The pits are still in them. If I use these in a dish, what I'll do is I'll open up, take out however many I need, and I'll take a little paring knife and I'll just pare the olives off the pit if I need them for like a macaroni salad or something like that, or on a pizza. Now the other thing is, you don't have to can these olives. If you're not doing a lot of olives, you put the salt and the water in them and put them in the fridge. That's all you got to do. Now, if they're in the fridge and they're not canned, you need to change the brine out about every 2 weeks. Dump all the brine out of the olives. Make up a fresh brine. If it was a little too salty, you could back off on the salt. If you add the same amount of salt as you did the first time, that will probably get salty, so you might want to back off on the salt anyway. The good thing about it is, if they get too salty, you just dump that brine out, put some less salt brine in, and the salt will leach out of those olives just like the lye did when we cured them. So olives are pretty forgiving. You can also add flavoring in them. You can put garlic or any aromatics you want to try your own flavors. Sky's the limit. So I just rinsed these about an hour ago, so we're good on that. And I like to leave the water in the bucket as I start pulling the olives out, because they move around a lot better. And I'm not like bruising them and stuff as I handle them. So I'll pull them out like by the scoopfuls like this. I put them in my colander there in the sink. And I give them another real good rinse before they go in the jars. And we fill the jars, leaving 1-inch head space. So I've got my first jar full. So now that you've got a full jar down to the shoulder down here, shake the olives real good to get them to settle. We need 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt into the jar. Brother Steve's here helping out this morning. And then we can fill it up with our good cold well water up to the shoulder. And then put the lids on after we wipe the rim. Make sure there's no salt on the rim. And we'll just start putting these in our canner. All right, we've got 1 canner's worth of olives in the canner. We had already filled the canner to the line with the correct amount of water. Now, Steve has never canned before anything, right?
Nope, never have.
So we're going to get his opinion on this canner, the ease of use, because pressure canning is very intimidating to a lot of people. And since he's never done it, he can let you know whether this process is scary or whatever. So Steve, grab the lid and look underneath the lid. Make sure the seal is pushed all the way down, all the way around, and not out of place. Looks good. So you want to line up this notch here with your remove. Okay, now turn it to the left. You're going to lock this down and turn it to the right. And then you're going to make sure this is on vent. Either side is fine.
And why are you putting it on vent now?
Because it has to vent before it goes into the canning mode. Okay. Now, if you were water bath canning in this, you would just leave it on vent.
And then there's water in the bottom of it.
There's already water in there, which is going to build your pressure and your steam. Okay. So we've got it plugged in. You can see it's flashing pressure can, right?
Yes.
So if you wanted water bath can, you would just turn this knob to the right. It would go to water bath. But since we want pressure, we're going to leave it on pressure, and you're going to push that button. So now it's going to ask you how many minutes. So for quarts, we're going to do 30 minutes. And then push it again. It goes in, says insert jars, which we've already done because we've cold packed. If we were going to hot pack, we'd put jars in there half full of water, and it would actually warm your jars for you. But since we're cold packing, we can skip that step. So now it's going into the warming phase. So we're going to continue putting our jars together for our other canner. Okay, we've got our other canner ready. Steve's checking the seal. Going to put our lid on. Just making sure the seal is all the way down seated. Little quarter turn. Lock the lever down. Make sure we're in vent mode. Either side is fine.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it'll go either side.
Makes it a little easier.
So we're on pressure can already. We're pressing the button. 30 minutes. Press the button again. Insert jars. We've already done that. So now it's in the warm mode. So it's just a waiting game until these things beep. So if you haven't been with the channel before, the reason you can skip the steps on these canners is, again, because we're cold packing. And the way these canners work, they don't proceed on to the next step until they're up to temperature. There's temperature probes in here that measure temp. So, and it won't come to temperature unless everything in there is at the canning temperature. So those jars are going to warm up in this warming phase to where they would be at the next step. So we can just keep pressing the button and moving on. And it won't actually come up to cooking temperature or canning temperature until the whole canner is up to that temp. So that's the reason we can get away with it. You can see we still have over half of our bucket to do here. This is a 6-gallon bucket, it says on the label. So we're doing quart jars, so 6 times 4. We should come out to around 24 quarts to get it all done. But Steve's going to take some home with him, which he wants in pints. So we'll do some pints for Steve. Canner is beeped. So now it says fill jars, which we've already done, right? Because we're cold packing. So Steve, all you got to do is press that button again.
That's it?
Yep, that's it. Now it goes into heat mode.
Now the heat's going to then seal it?
No, it's going to heat up and start going to cooking temperature. And then it's going to go, once it reaches the right temperature internal, it's going to go into a vent mode. And it has to vent the air out of the canner for 10 minutes. And then it'll beep again and we'll close this. And then it will come to pressure. Okay, it beeped a little bit ago, so it's gone into vent mode. There's a 10-minute vent mode, which you don't have to do anything. It automatically does that by itself. So when we come back in, when it beeps again, Steve, all we have to do is close this and press the button and it goes into canning mode. Pretty simple?
Pretty simple, so just flicking it over once it's fenced.
Yep, that's all we got to do here in 4 minutes.
Too simple.
All right, we're beeped. Steve was out of the house for the other canner, so we'll show him on this canner. So you want to close the vent now that the vent mode is over, and then push this button down here. And then that's going to go into canning mode. So when this thing comes up to pressure, Steve, this little metal thing here will pop up and it will start creating pressure in the canner. The countdown won't start until the proper pressure is reached in the canner. It's going to be automatic.
So once this pops up, that in turn seals it down to pressurize the lids and seal everything up.
Seals everything up. And then it also doesn't allow you to open your canner, so it's a safety feature. You cannot open that latch.
Okay, good. Now with the old canners, they had a piece of the nipple that stuck up, and it had a weighted. The weight would hold it down to help it seal.
The weight creates the pressure.
Weight creates the pressure.
The amount of weight. There's different size weights where they had different positions or whatever. That would determine what your pressure would be in.
There you go.
Yep, just popped up. Our original canner just beeped and it says canning down here, so we know it's up to pressure. So this is going to start clicking off every minute. Our original canner just beeped.
So okay, what do we do now that it's in the cool mode?
You absolutely don't have to do anything. It does it all on its own. It's going to cool down on its own, and it's going to shut down on its own later when it beeps again. So it's pretty simple.
That's it, huh? Nothing, you don't have to vent it open or anything else?
Nope. Actually, if you vent the canner, what you're going to do is you're going to rapidly decrease the pressure in the canner, and you'll lose liquid out of your jars because your jars will be at a higher pressure than the inside of the canner would be. That's why we got to let it cool down on its own.
Gotcha. So what do we do with the original canners? The cans, the old pressure pots that you twisted on. What do you do with them?
Very good question. Now, what some people would do, they would take like the whole canner and they'd put it in the sink and they'd run cold water over it to decrease the temperature of the canner. The problem with that is you're running into the same problem where you're decreasing it too quickly. You want it to come down on its own. Our canner now says done. So it's equalized pressure. We can go ahead and pull the lid off. So if you want to turn that to the left, the green thing.
The button's going down.
And then flip it up. Flip the green thing up. So now you can rotate the lid. And there's going to be water coming off the lid, so kind of drain it into the pot. Open it away from you because there'll be steam. And then just set it back there on the towel. So our olives are done. All we have to do is take these jars out, put them on the counter. They'll start sealing. They haven't sealed yet. But that's basically it.
Is that because they're pushed up?
Yeah, you don't want to push it down on it. It'll let it, as it cools, as it gets colder, it'll create a vacuum and suck those lids down.
And that's how you can always tell if something's open, it's broken the seal.
Yeah.
Because it'll actually push up and down.
So like
instead of
tomorrow morning,
right? Because
we'll set these on the counter and just let them sit. So tomorrow morning, before we label them and store them, we'll make sure that none of the lids are popping up.
Gotcha.
So this is your first time pressure canning.
Yes.
People are very intimidated by pressure canning. They feel fear for their lives when they do this. At any point, did you fear for your safety?
No, I never feared for my safety. And now the old school pot ones like that, because people would open them up, and then the lids would do if they weren't done with the pressure and everything else, and the weight that was there. If it wasn't down and cooled, like you said, you did a water bath on the cool it down.
Yeah.
You still have pressure built up on the inside.
That was most of the mistakes that people made, was opening the canners while they were under pressure. And the newer canners, even the newer standard canners, the lid will pop up into some lugs, which won't allow you to even open the lid. So, but that was basically everybody's mistake, opening the canner while it was under pressure, and then all the steam, it would kind of blow up on them. So, but this is super simple, and you being never canning before in your life,
never.
Didn't have any problem doing it.
Had expert tutelage.
I don't know about that. So that's how you cure and can olives. It's not a terrible process. It's a lengthy process. I'll give you that.
Yeah, we still got more to go.
You make sure you have a week to do it in. We have like 2 more batches to do, but we won't keep you around for that. So really enjoyed having my buddy Steve here for the last week or so.
Oh, one last question.
Yes.
Where do you get the information so you know how long to do the canning for?
Oh, I use a book. I use the Amish Canning Cookbook. You just go in and find whatever recipe you're doing. It'll tell you how long to can, even for the altitude you're in and everything like that. Or just ask Siri or whatever. Say you're canning peaches. How long do I water bath peaches? And, it's all online. Not hard.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. We're going to wish Steve a safe travel home, back to see his kids for Christmas. So come back and see us here on Markelly Farm.
See ya.